Hello, my name is Trinity.
And my name is Casey. In this episode, we'll be discussing the case of the Night Stalker. His real name was Richard Ramirez, and his crimes would make him one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. Richard Ramirez was born in 1960 in El Paso, Texas. By many accounts, his childhood was troubled. He grew up around alcohol as his dad was an alcoholic. He would often abuse Richard. He reportedly suffered multiple head injuries and was exposed to violence at a young age. The injuries he sustained caused some brain damage. At the young age of 10, he started doing drugs. One major influence was his cousin, a Vietnam War veteran, who shared graphic stories and even photographs of violent acts from the war. He moved in with his cousin when he was 12 years old. His cousin was also involved with drugs and other crimes prior to Richard moving in, which contributed to how he was raised and what activities he partook in growing up.
As a teenager, Ramirez became more involved with drugs and petty crimes. He later moved to California at the age of 22, drifting between jobs and living situations. He began abusing even more drugs, but behind the instability was something more dangerous developing. Only 2 years later did he start his killing spree as a Night Stalker. Unlike many serial killers who follow a consistent pattern, Ramirez had no single victim type. He targeted elderly women and young couples. He never killed children, but he would assault them before letting them live. His crimes ranged from burglary to sexual assault and murder. No one could predict his next move, which made him even more terrifying to the public.
During the summer of 1985, Ramirez's attacks escalated dramatically. He would enter homes at night through unlocked windows or doors, often shooting victims with a handgun or attacking them with a knife. Although these were the most common methods used, there was never a pattern of how he killed people. During only a single year, he stalked and killed at least 14 people, assaulting or abusing many others. In some cases, he left behind satanic symbols drawn at crime scenes. As the crime rate went up, there was more coverage on the internet. Newspapers and TV stations repeatedly used the name The Night Stalker, amplifying public anxiety. Residents began sleeping with weapons nearby, and hardware stores reported selling an extreme amount of locks and alarms.
The investigation was complicated by the lack of consistent method and victim profile. But eventually, cruelty break came. His fingerprint lifted from a stolen car that matched Ramirez's criminal record. On August 31st, 1985, after his face had been widely broadcast on television, Ramirez was recognized by residents in East Los Angeles. A group of civilians chased him and stole him till the police arrived. It was a rare moment where community action directly ended a serial killer's regional terror.
The trial of Richard Ramirez began in 1988 and became a main topic of discussion. He showed little remorse, at times flashing satanic symbols with his hands and making chilling statements in court. He blamed everything he did on the way he grew up as a child. In 1989, he was convicted of 13 murders, along with numerous other charges, including attempted murder and sexual assault. He was sentenced to death and spent the rest of his life on death row at San Quentin State Prison.
Ramirez died in 2013 from complications related to cancer while still awaiting execution. His case remains one of the most disturbing in American criminal history, not only because of the brutality, but because of the unpredictability. There was no clear motive beyond violence itself. The story of Richard Ramirez forces us to comfort uncomfortable truths about randomness and fear. His crimes changed how communities thought about safety. Locking doors and windows became more than routine. It became survival. But beyond the headlines and the nickname Night Stalker, it's important to remember the victims and the families whose lives were forever changed. It's also important to note that just because someone grows up under unfortunate living conditions, that doesn't excuse the way they deal with their issues, and Richard's actions are completely on him.
True crime often focuses on the perpetrator, but the real story is about the people who endured the unimaginable, and that's something we should never forget. Condolences to the victims and all of their loved ones, and that wraps up our episode. Thank you for listening to the case of Richard Ramirez.